मैले यहाँ पहिला 95-96 तिर म नेपालमै थिएँ. I did my engineering in India. So नेपालमा सानो एउटा कम्पनी पनि थियो. We used to do insurance software. त्यही सिलसिलामा युएसमा एउटा नेपाली साथी हुनुहुन्थ्यो. He was CTO, so he was looking for software company in Nepal, so he acquired us. Then we did actually work here for like about 3 years. Pilgrim software भनेको कसैलाई थाहा छ? तपाईँहरू सबै एकदम यङ रहेछ. Then we moved back to US because माओवादीको भर्खर सुरु भइरहेको थियो त्यति बेला. भर्खर त्यो पुल्चोकको बाटो जाने बेलामा बेलुकी सबै त्यो पुलिसले चेक गर्ने बेला. That was really starting. त्यति बेला यस्तो केही भएको थिएन. त्यहाँदेखि त्यो माओवादीको आउनु थाल्यो. Then we moved to US and I've been in US forever after that, right? So वास्तवमा चाहिँ म जान मन लागेर होइन फसेँ कि अमेरिका जानलाई. सो न फस्यो आउनलाई गाह्रो छ है. So again, so I really it was really good coincidence actually. I just came like 3-4 days back. अब मेरो जेट ल्याग पनि सिद्धा छैन अझै. So you know तर ठ्याक्कै यहाँ पनि भइरहेको रहेछ. So I thought like I think प्रकाशजी अमितजी होइन. Then we said well हुँदैछ भन्यो ल okay then why not, you know. Your topic say little bit more management driven, sir. I know because I thought that I mean I gave you few choices. I think this was more preferred choice, right? And it's not only about management for managers, right? It's about the management. Management doesn't mean that manager has to do the management, right? So that's why it's really relevant to everybody, right? It's really relevant to everybody. So before we start, let's say quick agenda. We'll talk about management trio, of course, and we'll talk about a little bit about complex adaptive system. So I'll explain you a little bit more. And then there are some management trio practices. Especially there are 2 practices. If time allows, then we'll cover those 2 practices. Okay, one is basically empowering the team. Another one is motivating the team, right? Whether you are a scrum master, you are managers, anybody for that matter, right? And Agile Makisa, we talk about emergent leadership, right? So anybody can be leader for that matter, right? So it's not the appointed leaders, but it's about the emergent leaders, right? Who can take on leadership themselves instead of somebody appointing. Because कसैले appoint गर्न साथ त त्यो त command and control भइहाल्छ. किनभने कसैले leader बनाइदियो भने then they feel that they are entitled as a leader. Right, so they tend to be more command and control, right? But emergent leader भयो भने के हो? सबजनाले मान्यो हैन? But he doesn't or she doesn't have authority in that sense, but they are emergent leader, right? So that's kind of different. So just quick, I heard some of you guys are Scrum Masters, some are engineering managers, developer testers. I think we have a kind of mix of everyone, right? Some co-founders and all those things. So just give me some shout out, like what are the management challenges that you have currently? Like what do you want to know about management? What are the current challenges?
One is resource management.
Going a little bit more specific.
So like because of fire growth trend, as every company.
Sorry, I can't do anything on that.
So another one is like professionalism. There are no so much professional. So management as a professional, it is also required.
Okay.
It's creating a culture of like taking initiatives and actually like taking ownership of tasks that they are not assigned to.
Okay.
So basically means like, you know, creating a culture where leaders would be immersed out of there.
Absolutely. Good, very good. Okay, other challenges, okay, sir. I don't promise that I have answer for everything, but we'll go through this. I think definitely it will help you. Okay. Any other challenges?
One of the challenges is we have onshore and offshore. The connection between them is lacking.
Okay.
One is that, and my team is not exactly agile. So one challenge is continuous improvement. People are not spending time in learning, learning on longer.
Okay. So again, उहाँको जस्तै इनिसिएटिभको कुरा आयो होइन, more self initiative to do continuous improvement. Okay.
लिडरसिपमा एटिकेसन त्यो भन्दा जो लिडरसिप चेन्ज हुनु अनि त्यसपछि भिजन चेन्ज हुनु अनि उनीहरूको स्ट्राटेजी चेन्ज हुनु होइन त्यसले गर्दा चाहिँ तल म्यानेजमेन्टदेखि लिएर टिमसम्म कन्फ्युजन हुनु क्रिएट हुनु इन विच डाइरेक्सन यो डाइरेक्सन पहिला एउटाले यहाँ जाउँ भन्छ होइन देखाउँछ त्यहाँ चेन्ज भइदियो फेरि अब यो बाटो हिँड्नु भन्छ सो कन्फ्युजन क्रिएट हुन्छ त्यसले गर्दा त्यसको सोल्युसन के होला
अर्को एउटा चाहिँ more like property like this. So waiting for the decision to be made by the seniors rather than going for the
Okay.
decision
So
what they
we'll
have
talk
to
about that. We'll talk about that. Okay. Okay, challenges are. Okay, so I think these are very common challenges, right? So these are very common challenges. So we'll talk about some of those. We'll catch up. And again, it's 1 hour, right? So we can't really. I mean, this the management through course is 2 days course, right? So we do 2 full days course. So we'll try to catch up. And if later on, if we wanna communicate through emails or if we wanna do virtual, I'm totally up for it. Okay, yeah. So I would really love to help you guys in any way I can, right? Because I have gained my knowledge with 25 years. So if I can give piece of it to back to country, right? I mean that's really I'll be delighted to do that, right? So he's Jürgen Apollo. This is the guy who actually created Management 3.0, right? He's from Europe. I don't know which country exactly he's from, but he created Management 3.0. So what is Management 3.0, right? So really looking at it, Management 1.0, he categorized this. It's not like somebody really said like 1.0, 2.0, or 3.0. He just categorized himself, right? So he said that, well, Management 1.0 is really command and control oriented. It's like when you're in a factory worker, right? So if you have factory workers, like say, hey, you come in, clock in, you do this, you go out, that's it, right? So that's Management 1.0. Management 2.0, on the other hand, is people realize that, okay, it's not, we got to improve, right? So there's a Six Sigma, Lean, right? Theory of constraint. I mean, there are a lot of system theory, system thinking. There are a lot of theories that came up, right? So people started improving a little bit, right? So there's Kaizen and all those things. But what he calls is, well, they did the right thing, but with the wrong hierarchy. Right? So basically, it's still the hierarchical system, right? So when you look at a hierarchical system, like you have CEO, this, VPs, directors, managers, and this hierarchical system comes from the monarchy era, right? So basically, king, prime minister, right? So we're still doing that hierarchical system, right? So, I mean, there are pros and cons, right? If there had all the cons, then we could have already done something else, right? But there are pros and cons. So that's 2.0. So in 3.0, not only managers, everybody is responsible for management, number 1, right? And everybody have autonomy. Everybody is responsible. Everybody feels responsible, right, to contribute to the success of the company, right? So because most of the time, we look at somebody and say, he doesn't do this, she doesn't do that, And that person says to me, he doesn't do that, she doesn't do that, right? But if you really look at it, we're just pointing to others and just trying to find out like who's not doing the right thing. I mean, can you look at yourself and say, what I'm not doing the right thing, right? So then you start becoming responsible, right? Instead of just saying, somebody's not doing what you're not doing correctly, right? That's what we need to focus on, right? So which brings up the responsibility from everybody else, right? That's why we'll talk more about that. He has written this few books. There's Management 3.0, How to Change the World, Managing for Happiness. He created tons of books. It's really available. You can really go there. You can read those books. I mean, he has tons and tons of information, right? Because he was a software developer and he was a manager, and he became manager just because somebody said, well, you are good in technology, so just why don't you become manager? That's a wrong way of appointing the manager, right? If you really look at it, right? If somebody is really good at technology, make him architect, make him something else that he can do his good job, right? Not make him manager, right? If you really look at it, there's in hospital, you have doctors, and there is a hospital administrator. Does doctor get promoted and become hospital administrator? No, right? Because they become doctor and MD or whatever, whatnot, right? They become specialist. Engineers are a specialist, basically, right? There are some who has skills and passion to be manager, they will become, right? But just because you are a good engineer doesn't mean you are a good manager, right? So that's the really, wrong way of doing things, right? So, and there is like this one website, happymedi.com. So you can really go there. There are a lot of discussion going on about management trio and all those things, so you can check out there as well. Okay. Just quick benefit of adopting Agile, right? Here are some benefit of adopting Agile. This is done by if you guys are aware of version 1, that's another software tool for Agile, right? Just like what Kripa Bedi told about the Jira, that's version 1 is another software, but Jira is really, I think that's a 48 to 60% Agile companies use that. So Jira is the most highest used. Others like 15%, 10%, 5%, Jira is way up there, right? So they do yearly annual survey. So these are what are the benefits of adopting Agile. More than that, I wanted to kind of focus on challenges experienced in adopting and scaling Agile, right? What are the challenges, right? If you look at it, organizational culture at odds with Agile values, general organization resistance to change, inadequate management support and special, lack of skill experience with Agile method, insufficient training and education. Most of the things is a management problem. I'm not saying manager problem, it's a management problem, right? Change management, this is a huge management problem, right? Because when you do the Agile transformation, if you go into really enterprise level, the key is change management, because everybody is like, they feel antsy, they don't want to change and all those things. And I think in Nepal, you have many young companies, and then you have a young people. So I think change is not a problem for you if you go to Agile. Actually, people are excited, I think, right? People are excited, they want to do. If you go to large organization, my God, it's huge problem. I consult to a company called Anthem Insurance. They have, in IT, they have about 10,000 employees just in IT, right? And then it includes, when we transfer Agile, it's not IT, we go enterprise level. So there are like business people, right? Because if business people don't go along with IT, then you can't transform it. We have about 60 Agile coaches, just coaches, right? And then Scrum Master, God knows, right? There are like 700 some teams, right? Still there are like 200-300 teams, more teams that needs to be Agile transfer, right? So there's a huge transformation. And there the change management is really key. People don't want to change. There are like people who work there for 20 years, 25 years, and they've been doing that for all their life, right? They don't want to change at this age, right? So change management is huge, right? Similarly, skill set, management support, and another key part is management support. When we have impediments, then we need support for management, right? So there are a lot of challenges. So the point I'm trying to make is basically there are a lot of management issues in Agile transformation, right? So if you really look at it, management is all about human beings, right? It's all about human beings. What we're trying to do, we're trying to get all these human beings together, create a joint effort to create a product or a service, right? So it's really, truly about the overall human beings, right? Management is totally about human beings. So what Jürgen says is management is too important to left to just managers, right? Because it's so important that you cannot just leave it to managers and say, guys, why you're not managing well, right? You really can't say that. It's really too important, right? Because managers can't do everything. So, any questions so far? Any confusion? Anything at all? Okay, we're good. Please, let's make it more interactive, right? अनि त्यो प्रकाशले टाइम कति लाग्छ भनेर सोध्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो. It depends on how much people interact, right? We can go forever, like another 2 hours, or we can get it done in 45 minutes, right? So try to. Any question is good question, so just throw it out there, it's a good discussion, right? I mean, it's just a discussion. So when we look at a team or organization for that matter, we call it complex adaptive system, right? What that means is basically it's complex. There is in a system there are parts which are people, right? And then they make a whole as a system, a team or organization, and they show complex behavior. What complex behavior is, you cannot predict those behavior, right? You cannot really predict those behavior. There are a lot of uncertainties on this behavior. Plus, they change their behaviors as we go along, right? You go along and then you say, well, we cannot do this. Then you adapt to that situation, you change the direction, right? So, number one, it's complex in the sense it's uncertain, right? Number two, it adapts to the system, right? So just like, for example, there are other examples, right? Just like our brains, right? Our brain is really complex, right? We can't really control our brain, right? Sometimes just because I hear a lot of other things also, like I can control my hand at least, you know? Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this, but I cannot control my mind, right? So it just moves around, right? It's very complex. So just like but it adapts, right? It adapts to the situation. Bacteria, immune system, internet, any garden, cities, anything, right? All these exhibits the complex behavior. So in complex behavior, it's hard to control those complex behavior, right? That's why it's like we don't have a point solution for everything, right? Because well, we're doing Agile, da 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 da. Okay, so do this. We don't have like a, you know, well-written step 1, step 2, step. Well, we have a guidelines, we have a framework, but it might work a little differently for you. It might work differently for you, right? Depends on what your situation is, right? Because organization is a complex system again, right? And I found this Kathmandu when I came to, I mean, it used to be, but it's even more complex now. All the traffic's really complex. I was like, it's like there's 1 inch, right? Oh, he's gonna hit it. Either he stops or move around, right? It's really complex system, right? So, but the point here is, I'm gonna go to another slide and there is something called law of requisite variety. So what it says is, if you have to control a system, right, complex system, then actually the system which controls that complex system has to be more complex than that system, right? Rightfully, right? So for example, let's say, if you have some state, let's say, Kimabani showed that state of workflow, right? So you have in review, da 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 da, right? So if you check whether you are in review, whether you are in this, there is some system that needs to control, right? That has to be either equal or more complex than that, right? Because that system that controls that system has to know all the state, right? Or even more for that matter, right? So, but think about it, right? So you are a manager and you have 5, 6, 10 people reporting to you. There's no way in the earth the manager has a more complex understanding than those 6 persons combined together, right? It's not possible, right? A manager cannot know more than combination of 6 to 8 people that are working together, right? So for manager to control all the 6 to 10 people, he has to know all the state, all the behavior, all the interactions, all the outcomes of those 6 to 10 people, right? So that's why control is not possible, right? Controlling is not possible. Basically, so that's number 1, right? Just keep that in mind. As a manager, we cannot control people, right? What we need to do is we need to manage the system, manage the environment, right? So that we can help people control themselves, right? They call it, another one is centralized control versus decentralized, right? So if you cannot control, then you have to decentralize the control, right? And as one person, maybe I can control myself, another person can control themselves, right? But manager cannot control everybody, right? So that's a very, very plain and black and white, right? So we cannot expect manager to control everybody, right? That's pretty obvious, right? So another thing in complex system is we need to anticipate, adapt, and explore. Of course, we need to anticipate the future. I mean, we all do that, right? We need to adapt to the past, what we did, and we need to adapt. But the key part is we need to explore, right? We need to experiment, right? Just like who was in the marketing? Sorry, you're in the marketing. You do A/B testing, right? So marketing. I mean, I don't know. Don't take it other way, but as a marketer, you don't know exactly which page will work, right? You have no idea. So what do? You explore, right? Do A/B testing. Okay, let's put this page and see what's the hit, right? And change that little text and see what's the hit. Change the image and then see what's happened, right? Amazon does that. Amazon actually sends A/B testing and sends front page, like, I don't know, for 50% of user, another page for 50% of user, right? And see which one clicks more, right? So what are they doing? They know that's a complex system. Then it's stupid, right? So we cannot be, we need to learn so that when you have a complex system, you cannot predict, right? How many times you can predict your deadline? You can, right? I mean, you can try to put like 30% buffer or 50% buffer for that matter. Maybe you will come close, right? Still, right? So you cannot. So basically, in evolutionary system, by nature, involves the experimentations, right? All we can do is we need to do experiments. So two things I wanted to impress upon you. One is manager cannot control people. They have to decentralize the decision, right? And they need to manage the system or environment as opposed to people. The next one is basically we need to have this exploration, right? So two things. Management is everybody's job, not only managers, right? As I said, management is too important to leave it to just a manager, right? We all are managers, right? And before long time before Agile came in, and I used to be director of engineering there, and I went to one project management training. I think it was in like 2000 or something, yeah. And then it was like 6 days, amazing training, amazing project management. And I'm like, okay, why is project management just for project managers, right? Project management has to be for individual members. And I brought the same trainer, and I trained my team. We were like about 60 people. I trained the whole 3 days like a project manager for team members, right? So it's like same like that. Project management is everybody's job, right? Not just project manager's job. Same way, management is everybody's job, basically, right? The only way to win is learn faster than anyone else, right? That's what it is. Still, they call it, like, we used to call it knowledge work, factory workers, and then came the knowledge workers, right? Knowledge workers are good. Now, that's even more old now. Now, the creative people, right? Basically, creative people, right? So, in this age, you have to learn fast. You have to learn faster than your competitors to win your competitors, right? As simple as that, right? So, just quickly on complex system, and again, you can Google complex system, you can find all these things. And it doesn't mean that you need to know inside detail of it, you just use it. Basically, when I tell, sometimes people tell, you don't need to know everything. Just like when we eat food and it's like tasty food, we eat it. Number one, we don't need to know how to cook it, right? You don't need to. Another one, you don't need to know the chemical combination of what is that, right? Or what's the potassium, chlorine, or you don't need to know that, right? So just get the benefit of what we're saying, right? You don't need to know inside detail, but if you're still interested, you can go ahead and find out. Any questions so far on complex system? Like, does it make sense? Like, does it make sense? Any comments or anything? Like, any reactions of what I said?
So that management teams are 6 to 10 people. So managers, as a manager, it's a manager on something. So individual tasks are defined by the requirements and stuff like that. So त्यसको लागि सिस्टमकै कुरा गर्न त्यसमा ब्याक आउँछ
अलिकति हामी आउँछौँ लेटर अन बेसिकली डेलिगेसन छ होइन अनि कन्स्ट्रेन्ट भन्ने छ एउटा बेसिकली एट अ हाई लेभल त समबडीले त डिरेक्सन दिनु पऱ्यो नि होइन नत्र सो अलिकति टच गर्छौँ any के लाग्यो तपाईँहरूको थट प्रोसेसमा यो कम्प्लेक्स सिस्टम भने डु यु अग्री के हुन्छ नि एउटा मैले यो कुरा सुने मलाई यस्तो लाग्यो जस्ट सम कमेन्ट्स एनिथिङ द्याट इट मेक सेन्स or it doesn't make sense, still vague?
There are a few questions, but let's
Okay.
let's discuss it at a later point.
Sure. Okay, anybody else? Okay, we're good. All right. So he has these 6 views. Okay, management trio has 6 views. Again, these are not all very creative, innovative. It's not like theory of constraint. It's not like Lean, Six Sigma, and all those things. He basically went around and say what works, right? And due course of all experience and all those things, he combined these things and say, yeah, maybe this will work, right? So that's what it is, right? So these are 6 views. So I'll go just quickly at each one, and then I'll try to focus a little bit on energize people and empower people. There are tools. Basically, what he has created is some tools that we can use actually to little bit work on energizing the people and empowering the people, right? Because I think those are the 2 crux of the most of the things that we do. Okay. First of all, energize people, right? And of course, right, people are most important, right? Because, especially in software, because our raw material or everything is people, right? Because it's all, it's people business, basically, right? Of course, they need to do everything, whatever is needed to make people, to energize people. Again, they don't think from the managing perspective, not from the controlling perspective, but inspiring, leading. What it works for them, right? We'll go into a little bit more detail, but that's the one key view. He's saying that energizing people is really important, right? So next, empower teams. Of course, we talked about self-organization, right? I mean, Agile is all about self-organization, all those things, right? But it really requires the empowerment, right? It requires the autonomy, right? So it requires trust, right? It's a chicken and egg, right, situation. So managers say, well, I'll trust them if they give me this output. Well, team said, well, you don't trust us, so, I can't do it, right? So it's a kind of which comes first, right? So my suggestion is manager, you gotta be courageous and say, trust him, right? And see how it works. Try it out, it's an experiment. Again, when you take everything as an experiment or hypothesis, it's real lot easier. When you think about it, something, it's a hypothesis. Okay, I have a hypothesis that if I trust my team, I'll get better productivity. That's a totally hypothesis, right? So now let's experiment the hypothesis, right? Experiment the hypothesis and see what's the outcome, right? So when you take it as a hypothesis in your mind, it becomes a lot easier. Number one. Number two, for the people who are working also, they have a permission to fail, right? Because that's really key. Now, more and more, I don't know, maybe some of you are in startup culture, right? So fail fast, right? So fail fast is really, really important, right? At the first round, most likely you'll fail. But if you're gonna fail fast, learn from it, do another things, right? So that's really key. And then, so basically, as I said, so I kind of lost my track. So basically, as a hypothesis, use as a hypothesis and then experiment, right? So that will help you a lot. So that, and we'll talk about more on empowering teams as well. So the other key part is, well, if I let you self-organize, then God knows what you can do, right? I mean, all these terrorists, these are self-organized, right? I mean, so you could go either way, right? You could go either way. So somebody has to give some purpose and define the goal, right? So you need constraint, right? You self-organize, but there are certain guardrails. There are certain guardrails that you should stay under, right, to become self-organized, right? So that's align the constraint. So align the constraint with the team, right? That's really important, right? Of course, develop competence, right? That's really, really important, right? So there are different ways and different tools also, but I don't think I'm gonna have time to go through this. But the key part is, well, we have the inspirations, right? So empowering the team, which is great. You have autonomy, right? So basically, which is great, right? Energize, empower, and you have constraint, that's all good, but you need to have competence to achieve that, right? So you need to have competence. And then the another key is grow structure, right? So, okay, you can do very good in one Agile team, but what if you have like 100, I was saying 100 Agile team, right? So how do you grow those structures, right? There are a lot of scaling Agile frameworks, Save, Less, DAD, I mean, you know, God knows, Scrum. I mean, there are a lot of them, right? So they help you grow the structure, right? And there are the concept of guild, chapter, you know, so there are a lot of concepts. And so basically, finally, once we do this, we need to improve everything, right? Basically, just a very fundamental in Agile continuous improvement, right? So we need to continually improve, right? So these are basically 6 different. By the way, this looks like a tree, but this kind of, they are trying to make it a monster, and I think this monster name is Marty, Marty or Marty. Why? Because it's like, oh, people think that all managers are monsters. Sorry, managers. Okay, so okay, we are almost halfway, so I think we're good. Any questions on those 6 views? Like common sense.
In the empowering team side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's always a chicken egg problem, like you said. But can we go back to that slide once? Here's the problem that we face, like I face specifically at most of the times with my managers. So obviously, like we try to impart the desirable outcomes and the, like whatever the deliverables are. We make sure that they understand the vision, they understand what is to be required, and we kind of like, get out of the way. The problem is, like, we would know that they are failing, right? We can watch them fail, and like once we since we run it in a hypothetical way, like you said, like we're able to take that risk on our own. Like let's say like the deliverables don't get delivered for like 4 months down the schedule that we had targeted for. But again, the positive side we would see is like at least the team is bonding really well and they're developing the capacity to manage themselves, which is a good point. Now, since we neglected that, not delivering on time and not being serious about it, now it would become another culture, and it would transform to all the teams again.
I think they need to work under the constraint, right? We need to put the purpose and the vision, right, and some constraint, some guardrail, right? So I mean, you cannot think like, okay, number one, we need to allow them to come up with a plan, right? Basically, in Agile, we all do that. We have this backlog, and you need to pull the story. We're not gonna dictate you how many story you need to pull, right? So now there is a commitment in Scrum. There is a 5-6 values, like courage, commitment, open, and all the stuff, right? So they need to have a commitment, right? So, but when we experiment, we need to experiment a little bit more in safer environment, right? Not like, you can delay it for 6 months. I think that's not acceptable, right? But there should be more experiment in smaller cycle, more Agile manner, right? Not like risking the deliverables 6 months down the line, right? So I think we need to put some guardrails, we need to put some constraint and make it more safer environment to experiment, right? Experiment is, okay, you wanna do this solution or that solution? You experiment, you figure it out, right? Not really at a bigger level, right? But once they start, experimenting and getting success in a smaller scale, then maybe you can give it in a big scale.
That is the problem again. Like, if we were trying to train up like developers or tech leaders, we might have like smaller feedback cycles for that. But once you go into like, generating a leadership for an organization or a middle level management for the organization level, then like, the experiment cycles would be like 3 months, 6 months at least down the road.
So I think we need to clearly lay out the experiments actually, right? But definitely we need shorter cycle experiment, right? Because of course then you know within 2 weeks, you know is it failing or not, right? What else you need to do, and you can. If you get feedback in 2 weeks, then you can improve. What do we need to improve as well, right? Not after 3 months or 6 months, right? That's we're gonna go a little bit on more waterfall, right? All right. Anything else? And of course, we need to understand a little bit more detail of what are the other contexts around that to kind of pinpoint the right.
Yeah, probably we can get in touch
Yeah.
to discuss more later.
नेपालको कन्टेक्स्टमा होइन अब मोस्टली डेभलपर आयो कम्पनीले छिर्यो गिभिङ देम रिक्वायर्ड कम्पिटेन्सलाई चाहिँ कम्पनी डेभलप गर्दै गऱ्यो 2 इयर्ससम्म बस्यो भने चाहिँ इट इज अ बिग डिल बेसिकली
Yeah.
सो त्यसलाई चाहिँ म्यानेज गर्नुपर्ने पनि इट्स अ भेरी डिफरेन्ट डाइमेन्सन होला मेबी
Yeah.
आई थिङ्क वी हेभ द्याट रियल कन्सर्न
Yeah. I think that's a pain that I think India went through maybe 10 years back, and still they have that. But I think we're in the really. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? It's a good thing that people are going, and maybe someday they will come back and all those things. But it's a bad thing that we're working here. But of course, I mean, in that sense, I mean, a lot of startup culture has this stock options and all those things, right? I mean, we got to share, we got to distribute it. I mean, what can you do,
that
right?
Like a good solution, right?
Yeah, I mean, what can you do, right? I mean, you have to, if you need them, you need to keep them, right? So, to me, it's like share the wealth, right? I mean, but and for some it might work, for some it might not work, because they see this opportunity, outside opportunity, so different and so vast that it's really hard for you to really, compete with that opportunity, right? So it's really difficult. Okay, so let's watch a video. It's about, I think it's about 10 minutes.
Where people just follow the leader into disastrous situations. So I got my guys together and I said, hey, we've got a problem here. I was trained for another submarine. You're trained to do whatever nonsense comes out of my mouth. That's right, Captain. I mean, they knew. They already knew. I was pretty much talking to myself. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do, guys? And we talked about it. Okay, what I really wanted to do was get ready for the inspection. But we were sitting in the wardroom. We spent a couple hours. We were talking about it. And we came up with all these different things. And, well, you Captain, you just got to be smarter. You got to give better orders. It's like, well, how am I going to learn a whole nuclear submarine? Miles and miles and pipes. I spent a year learning Olympia. 2 weeks over here. So in a year we'll be safe? That's not going to work. We had to deploy the submarine in 6 months. So we talked about it, and they said, okay, there's only one logical solution. We figured it out. They're pointing at me, you shut up. What do you mean? That's not what captains do. That's not what captains of nuclear submarines do. They walk around, they give orders. They sound like Russell Crowe. Head 2/3, dive, make it up 500 feet. Helm left 15 degrees weather, setting course 255. Load torpedoes and tubes 1, 2, 3, and 4. Slide down, open outer doors, right? And I thought about it. And you know what? They were right. So at that point, I vowed never to give another order. And if you came down on my submarine, it would have been very confusing. Because you couldn't have pointed. It would have been hard to say, well, who's the captain here? Because you wouldn't have seen me giving orders. I did retain one order. The final order to launch a weapon, a torpedo or a missile, I kept with me because I felt that since that was going to result in the deaths of other human beings, that I didn't want that on anyone's conscience but mine. That was my moral and ethical responsibility. But even though everything else, in the Navy there's long lists of things that says the captain has to authorize. Captain should authorize. You got a couple nukes in your group, they'll tell you it's true. Captain authorize, submerge the ship, get underway, start up the reactor, shut down the reactor, connect to shore power, divorce from shore power. On and on, break product, on and on and on. Pages of these things. I just refused to give those orders. What we replaced it with was intent. Instead of giving instructions, If you want your people to think, don't give instructions, give intent. So they would come to you, hey, what do you want me to do? Well, left full rudder, steady course 255. No! So what are we trying to accomplish here today? Well, we're trying to get positioned so that when the enemy submarine comes through, okay, so where do you think we should position the ship? Maybe over here. Good idea, go there. You give intent to them and they give intent to you. So my officer stopped requesting permission. And every other submarine, Captain, request permission to submerge the ship. Submerge the ship. Submerge the ship high! On Santa Fe, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship. Very well. And they did it. And it might seem like it's a very small, nuanced change of language, but it was hugely powerful because the psychological ownership now shifts to them. They need to discover the answer. Otherwise, you're always the answer man. You can never go home and eat dinner. And so we started doing this. And it was hugely powerful. Actually, we went another step. Then I got smarter and I said, when the officer said, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship, I would ask him, well, what do you think I'm thinking right now? And he'd look at me, hard to tell. I'm guessing you're wondering whether it's safe. Bingo! I said, well, convince me it's safe. I said, Captain, I intend to submerge the ship. All men are below. Hatches are shut. Ship's rigged for dive. I checked the bottom deck. The submarine's in the water that's been assigned to us. Then later I had asked them, is it the right thing to do? And they would say, well, yes, sir, because our mission requires that we... And these are the two pillars that I think support this idea of giving control. These are the two pillars that need to be in place. The technical competence, which is represented by, is it safe? And the organizational clarity, which is represented by, is it the right thing to do? And you put those things in place, and then you can give control. And you give control, and you put those things in place. And you are off to the races. So think about what's happening now. My officers are starting to think like me, because they have to think like, where should we do the ship? And so the guys below them. Now this took 24 hours to happen. It took a couple years for the full implementation, but immediately there was change. The officers are thinking like me. So pretty soon I could go in the engine room, find the engine room lower level watch who was taking logs in the lube oil pumps, and he would know what the submarine was doing. He would know whether we were up tight, close to the enemy, and it was time to stay quiet, or whether we had backed out a little bit. This may be a good time to change filters and make a little bit of noise. A year later, we received another inspection. A year later, we received an inspection. The inspecting team gave us the highest grade they had ever seen. Not that year, not in the Pacific, ever seen. Why? I mean, this crew had a captain who was a dummy. It's because that needle started moving up. And on another submarine, there was one guy in charge, one guy giving orders, one guy thinking, and 134 people doing what they're told. I don't care how smart you are. On my submarine, I got 135 thinking, active, passionate, creative, proactive, taking initiative people. It's a tidal wave. You don't stand a chance. Here's the solution. Move the authority to where the information is. You mean the software engineer can decide whether we ship the software? Yeah. You mean the client, my salesman can close the deal? Well, up to $1,000. No. Yes. Whatever the price? Yes. What does it take to make that happen? Now, if you're picturing a lot of people out there doing crazy things and a bunch of arrows going in a bunch of different directions, you have the wrong picture. You create the environment so that those people are out there making decisions as if the CEO were standing right behind them. And if it's not the same decision, it's actually a better decision because they have the information. And not only will you get better speed of execution, because now you don't have this delay, what happens is those people feel like they matter because they're thinking. You engender thinking. You create the environment for thinking. The secret is nothing I said is hard. There's nothing hard. The only thing that's hard is you. It will feel wrong. You've been genetically and culturally programmed to take charge and make it happen. Take control and attract followers. What you want is to give control and create leaders. It will feel wrong, and you will repeatedly start down this path if you so choose, and then you'll be angry at yourself like I was, and you will have a failure, and you'll go back to the old way. You will pick yourself up, and you will go again. You will go again. And by doing so, you will achieve the greatest thing possible. You will have achieved greatness, not because of the deeds and acts that you did, but because you set an environment where the people around you and their families and their schools and their organizations and their businesses, they've achieved greatness. That would be the greatest thing of all. Go forth and be great.
So while we're doing this, what's your reaction? Any reaction? Any takeaways? Anything? You like it or you hated it? Depends on which side you are, probably. What do you guys think?
I think it was about empowering people
Mm-hmm.
and empowering by giving them control, authority. That's what I
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What are the other key takeaways? Just like what he's saying, like that other submarine has one captain who thinks about the greatness of the whole submarine, and here he has like 134 people, right? Everyone. He has everyone who thinks actively, right? How to make it better, right? So maybe your offshore problem will be solved if you do that. I mean, the people who leave. So, and another thing he talks about is intent. Actually, fortunately, I had opportunity to attend his keynote speaking. Actually, he was in one of the. There is a Scrum Alliance. There is a Agile Global Gathering. Actually, Agile Global Gathering is 3-4 times bigger. I've attended Scrum, but Agile Alliance is even bigger, and he was the keynote speaker. So, I mean, he has the book called Management by Intent, right? So basically, what we talk about, the constraint, right? So that's really the constraint part is what it is, right? He had like a empowering the team, autonomy, and constraint, right? All of them actually, all of them. He had all of them. So, and he had another one. It's managing the environment, right? Creating the environment of the creativity, right? So he creates the environment so that people can become more creative, right? We'll catch up on this one because what he says is he took the final launch of the missile to himself, right? But gave delegated other things to his responsible people, right?
Also, I think like another very important part of it, like I made it, like not everybody would agree with me, but I think a very important point he mentioned was like to make sure that not everybody is thinking and going their own way. Instead,
Yes,
like actually
aligning.
replicating the
Yeah.
thought that.
I agree. Aligning the overall constraint, right? Putting the constraint and goal and the vision to align overall teams. Yeah, I totally. That's awesome. So let's move forward, right? So I think so. We're at the. So are you okay? Do we have permission to move forward? Still, we're at 6 now. We can carry on, or I was wondering, like, you guys are awesome, I would have maybe hang out in some pub or bar or club somewhere, but you're so dedicated, so passionate. I really appreciate it. I was remembering to say while I start, but nevertheless, I didn't forget that. So, but I really appreciate you guys coming here. That's awesome. So, do you want to move forward, or what do you want to do? Anybody has constraint? You can, if you have a pre-plan, like, at 6, definitely feel free to leave, okay? But I have Yeah, I have quite a bit of material still.
Let's continue.
Okay, all right. So I'll try to kind of go a little bit faster. So self-fulfilling prophecy trap, right? For example, when manager always change what people deliver, why making it perfect, right? Because you do something and manager comes in and then he changes, oh, this is not how you do it, this is how you do it, right? And you write some code, you did not put this class perfectly, you did not do this database correctly or whatever it is, right? You do testing, oh, you did not test it here, you should have written this in test cases, you missed it, right? So if manager changes every time what you do, why the heck you're gonna make it perfect, right? As simple as that. That's why you need to delegate that. You are responsible, right? Not me. Sometimes management, if you're manager, I sincerely believe that managers take too much of responsibility. Because the boss comes in and asks, hey, where is it, right? Quality is not perfect. So every time we as a manager take on the full responsibility, right? To me, that's the biggest problem, right? If you look at any other cases also, I don't know how many of you have kids and all those stuff, right? But I have kids, right? So if I take responsibility, everything for that kid to kids, right? Like it making prepare breakfast or whatever, right? It's just take it for granted, right? Yeah, you're gonna take it anyways, right? So, so once you give the responsibility and say, no, I'm not gonna do it. You are hungry, go eat it, right? So they have to do it, right? I've seen many places where these things happens. In my household, and of course in America, you don't have maids, like not luxurious life you guys have, right? So we got to rely on ourselves, right? So basically you have to do your dishes yourself and everything. I used to be really relaxed and my wife used to do everything, right? And I think she learned management, right? And she started not taking the responsibility. And well, evening, and she just, okay, good night, so she just go and sleep. Well, the dishes are there, I mean, everything is there, the kitchen is not clean, right? And I got to do that, right? So I said, you really learned the management. And I'm serious, really, as a manager, we should not take as much responsibility that we're taking right now. That's why you should never give big responsibility to Scrum Master. Scrum Master is not responsible to deliver. Scrum Master is there to facilitate, right? So as a Scrum Master, you should not take responsibility, delivery responsibility. If you give delivery responsibility, Scrum Master will start becoming command and control because there's somebody who will question you, right? You have no choice. You have to become command and control, right? So just keep that in mind. I think we talked about this, so I'm just going to skip it. We kind of touched about this as well. Empowerment, we need to give distributed control, right? Because we talked about the complex adaptive system, right? So basically we need to delegate decisions, right? As he said, right? He took on the responsibility of really at a high level, but he delegated others. So there is one tool actually we can use. So let me dive into that tool so that for the interest of time. So one key thing is we have fuzzy understanding of what's my authority versus what's manager authority, right? So one key thing what they say is we have to make sure that we have the clarity, right? Who has authority to do what, right? So we have this. There are 7 levels of delegation, okay? So first, tell. So basically as a manager, I'm gonna say, please do this, right? That's tell. Next one is sell. So I made the decision. When the first one I made the decision, I'm just saying that do this. In the second one, I said, well, I made the decision, but because I made this decision because of so and so and so. So I'm just trying to convince you, right? I'm just trying to sell you. And the third is consult. Before I make decision, I'm gonna talk to you guys and get your input before I make decision. So I'm kind of consulting you, right? And the next one is agree, is we all together make decision, right? Now after 4, it reverses. It's just the reverse, right? Advise. So I'll let team make the decision, but I'll influence them. Hey, I think we should do this because you guys did this, but maybe you should do this, right? So I'm trying to influence you, right? And then another one is ask feedback after decision by the team. You team made the decision, but I want to inquire. I want to give my feedback. But still, I'm not saying that do this or do that. I'm just asking question. I'm just inquiring it. Still, it's you who make the decision, right? And the 7, let's say, I'm not gonna even bother asking about what decision you made. I'm just gonna let you make the decision, right? So delegation is just not the binary. It's not like okay, either I make decision or you make decision. It's not that. There are 7 levels of delegation, right? So we need to capitalize this. So what do we need to do? There is you guys know poker planning, right? You do poker planning, yeah. So we do poker planning for this also, basically, right? So so here. So what are the decisions that we need to make? I mean, these are some examples, right? So just like we need to decide about process, about team roles, raw materials, role assignment, or you can say planning, how many story you want to take, the features or the vision of the product, roadmap of the product, right? Who's going to make decision? What decision? What you can do is simple process. So basically you have 1 to 7 level of delegation, right? And then take one topic and then do the poker planning, right? Do 2 things. What do you think is the current, right? What do you think is the current delegation, right? At the 1 to 3 go, you basically select the one that you think is appropriate and show it and see how many people come into it, like some may come with 2, some may come 6, right? Then you have a discussion, right? Then discussing, oh, you thought it was like 7, I thought it was 2, right? So it starts conversation. What it does is that brings the clarity, right? That brings the clarity to everyone else, right? And some people say, have a manager in the room or not have a man, you just need to, again, experiment those kind of things, right? But it's really good to understand for all the key decisions that you need to make, where do you stand today, right? Where do we stand today? And then, if you want to become more challenging, actually let manager do on his own, right? Just offline, manager do on his own, and then compare, right? What manager thinks, what level of delegation he is doing, and what delegation you have, right? So that can really give you the good view, and then you can have a clarification. Managers think, oh, I thought I gave you all the authority, right? It's like 6 for me. No, it says 2, right? Team says 2. So let's clarify that, right? And then we, as a team, we can agree on the desired delegation level, right? And then say managers and the team, they all sit together and say, this is the level of delegation we want, right? And then you can create how to get there, what are the action items that you need to do to get there as well, right? So it's a really, really simple thing, but it's really powerful. It's really powerful. Then you start delegating to the people, because not everybody can do like the guy he did on the video, right? Not everybody can do like the boom, everything you decide, right? But you can do this. And this is the inquire number 6 is very, very powerful. That one is very powerful because when people make decision, then you actually inquire them. Why did you make decision? What do you think that? Do you think there's any possible way? There's any other ways, right? Why did you make that decision, right? So that's a really, really powerful, and it's a really coaching method also. There are a lot of coaching method in coaching. You don't like difference between the mentoring, consulting, coaching, and we can talk about it next time anyway. So that's delegation. Do you think you guys can practice this, use this, in your environment? And you can create a big board, right? Big delegation board, right? And then see where you are, right? And actually some people suggest that you should transpose this, like, you should have the delegation level on this side, and then what are the key decisions on that side, and keep the 7 on the bottom so that you can see the card rising up, right? Card rising up every month or so, right? So if delegation is 7, next time let's try with inquire, right? Next time, so you can see the cards moving upwards, right? So it's pretty neat actually. Any question on this one? Good? Okay. Next time when you have a meetup, I'll ask if you guys are using or not. Or maybe somebody, the best thing to do is if somebody can really use it and you can present in the next meetup, right? Say, hey, we did this, we used this, these are the challenges we had, or these are the things that we had, it was like really low, and after 1 or 2, we rise it to above level, right? This is a very good case study. Okay, again, quickly on empowering, how to motivate people? How can I do to improve engagement, right? How can we retain them here and not so that they don't go abroad, right? That's the big challenge, right? Technically, we can make people motivated because they are what they are, right? They have spent there before they came to your job. They spent like 16, 20 years of their life doing something else. They have their own context, how they are brought up, what clicked them, and all those things. So you cannot really easily motivate them. You cannot energize them. You can see the person who is motivated versus who is not motivated. You can clearly see that, right? So the ones that are motivated, you don't need to do anything, right? Just make sure you don't demotivate them, right? That's all, right? For the people who are really, really not motivated, it's a difficult task, right? But
Wrong hiring decision, I'd say.
yes, right. But there are certain things that can help them, right? There are certain things that can help them, right? There are, of course, hopefully you know that there's an intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, right? And that's like here, the examples was like, oh, writer as a book writer, author, am I writing because I just love to write it? Or am I writing because I can make some money, right? If I'm writing because I can make some money, then that's extrinsic motivation, right? Even though whether you may like it or not like it, but you're doing it. It means the likely chances of writing a good book may be less, right? But by the other way, if you're really into writing and you love everyday writing books, of course I think it's gonna have a better result, right? And same thing of course here also in US, basically there's a lot of entrepreneurs, right? And they call it, if you really love doing what you're doing, there's a high chance that you are successful, right? But if you're doing just because other people are millionaire and you just want to be a millionaire as well, good luck, right? I mean, that's seriously, right? So there are 10 intrinsic desires that he identified. Of course, it's not that something he created. He, look at the other research and all those things, right? So curiosity, all these intrinsic desires are different for different people, right? So for some, my intrinsic desire may be the curiosity, right? Which is basically need to think, investigate. Some, you feel like really your value match with organization values, right? That might keep you long, right? With the company. Acceptance, other one is like you want acceptance, you want approval from other people, say, oh, you did good job, right? You're great, right? The mastery and competence, there are certain people who really like to master what they're doing. Just like, for example, like anybody play music? Yeah, the one who play music, they are looking for mastery, right? Some maybe in the band or somebody, but others like just you enjoy and you just try to master it, right? Same thing in programming, maybe you like to be master in certain things, right? So basically there may be some people who have the high desire to master their field. Power, need for influence of will, right? So basically you have a power that you can influence others. Some may be motivated by this. Some may be motivated by autonomy, freedom, right? Some may be motivated by relatedness. Basically, when you have a contact with friends and all those things, I see especially with young folks, right? Where you go to work and you just feel like being connected with your peers, right? That may be high motivation, right? And then some people like a very stable, ordered environment. Some more purposeful, right? You want to do greater and bigger things. Some for status, right? So in this case, so there's another game. Again, these cards you can find for free. I mean, not card, but these pictures you can find it in management3o.com, right? You go there and there is a resource. You can print them. You can print them yourselves, okay? So here's another one. Basically, let's identify each person, give them those 10 items, right? And you prioritize them, right? You prioritize them based on what's your priority of your motivation? What's resonated with you the most, right? Is it the curiosity? Is it the power? What is it, right? You put it there. So you can show to each other so that all the team members know that, wow, you like approval, right? It means that everybody needs to, yeah, good job, man, you did great, right? Versus you need purpose, right? It means that then managers say, well, I really need to bring some purpose to this organization. What we're doing is purposeful for society, right? So those kind of things, right? So you prioritize them, number one, right? So that way, at least sway to each other so that you know what's your priority, right? From the motivation factor point of view. And it's a good point to have, especially people who are in flight, right? Who are like kind of maybe that person will leave after like 3 months. Okay, let's do moving motivators, right? And the other thing is, when we make some changes, especially this is for change, okay? When we make some changes, or we are trying to make some change on the bonus plan, or we're trying to make some change on the process, or anything for that matter. And then let's say we're trying to go Agile, okay? So which of your need or desires have a positive impact versus negative impact, right? Let's say, for example, if I'm trying to bring in Agile and you have a really need for order, which is like everything needs to be in order and all those things, that might go down, right? And there may be some like curiosity. Oh, I'm really curious about the Agile, so it may go up, right? So that way you know if we do something, what does that mean, right? It will go up or it will go down. So in that way you have some way of understanding how to give incentive to that person, right? Or how to sell, for that matter, how to sell. If you're going Agile and if you're thinking that some of those moving motivators are going up or going down, how do you convince them that's not going to impact you, right? If it's especially going negative, right? Let's say, for example, your order goes down, right? So basically the order is basically stable environment, right? Let's say somebody, I really give priority to that. Things needs to be stable, perfect, and it's my first motivator. And if you bring Agile, he said he thought that will go down, right? How do you convince that actually Agile has more order than waterfall, for that matter? Because you have all this sprint, you have all this cadence done ahead of time. Most of the time people have understanding that, well, if Agile comes, then we don't need to do anything, we don't need to write requirements, you can do whatever, I mean, it's chaos, blah, blah, right? So how can you convince that person? No, it's not like that, right? So this is another powerful tool that you can really use to motivate people, right? So please try to use it, right? Especially when you see this risk for the flight, people moving abroad, and then see how you can do this, right? Let's say, for example, and I gave you well, maybe you should give the stock options, right? But I don't know if that will work or not, depending on people, right? For some, it may be a good thing, but for some, it may not be, right? So see the the motivations, right? Is it going up or is it going down? And then try to pinpoint, okay? There's another one, this quick kudos card. I don't know if you're do this or not, but basically you create a card and then as soon as you have some event that you want to appreciate somebody, just write the card and pass it on. So this is basically done on a team to team level, right? So that you see the appreciation, right? The appreciation doesn't need to always come from manager, right? So if you do on team level, it's really useful. And actually, I did this long time back, actually 15 years back, and it worked really well, actually. Before I did not know this, they call it kudos card or whatever, I just used it. And we exactly created a similar card like this. And we had a folder where you can really display it, just like the concept is like, you have an army who actually, have these badges, so it and all those things. So
here's again another problem that might be too specific to Nepal. Like we actually implement this on a company overview level, right? So we actually have a whole column where anyone can go in and like put a bravos to under anyone's name, like just assign the card to someone and appreciate what he has done. I think it's been like 7 or 8 months that we've been implementing it. So far, I'm the only one appreciating somebody on week-to-week level.
So yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes again, the one thing is when we come up with, this is the one key thing, when we come up with solution as a manager, if you come up with solution, it's hard to have the people contribute to that, right?
Or buy in.
Right, buy in. So the key is, as a manager, you don't come up with solution. I said, the people say, well, you know, I don't get appreciated. I said, what do you think if you guys appreciate yourself? You know, that might work. You know, so okay, maybe you can create a card. Do you think? Yeah, maybe. Okay, what's stopping you from trying that? Oh, I don't think so. Anything, right? So do you have budget? Yeah, no. Say, okay, I'll provide a budget, right? So try to have people take ownership of all these things, right? And otherwise it's really difficult. And again, there are like a lot of change management theories also, like Kotter's 80 steps and all those things, where you create a sense of urgency, right? You build a guild and all those things. So again, we're dealing with all this complex adaptive system, right? So there are so many moving parts. That's what we're saying. So many moving parts. Nobody can figure out exactly how we need to do in this organization, right? We just need to keep on experiment. But the key is, more and more you give autonomy to the team, to those kind of, these are safe environment, right? They can, it's a permission to fail in a safe environment, right? These are safe environments. So you build a safe environment, let them experiment it, right? So I think that's gonna help. That's gonna help. But as you said, you cannot predict that. You know, sometime that might happen. And we did. We added some reward to it. I mean, iPhone was really new that time, and so we say, okay, whoever has the highest point, give the iPhone. But again, that people can really. You know, they can tweak it also. They can do that also, right?
For appreciation.
Yeah, they can do that also. But sometimes again, then we need to trust people, right? We need to trust people that they will not cheat the system. So again, there are, especially the extrinsic motivation one, people can cheat all they want, right? You have like metrics, the velocity. Well, you can cheat the velocity. I mean, just put the higher size. I mean, what the heck, right? So you can cheat all this more extrinsic motivation kind of things, right? But more and more is intrinsic motivation. It's for them and it's for their feeling and emotions, right? It's hard for them to cheat themselves, right? So that's why we try to leverage the internal intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic motivation more, right? But it was a short time and I took longer than what I was supposed to, and I can. I'll send you one video. There is one very good video about the intrinsic motivation. Basically, the key 3 things: the PAM, purpose, autonomy, and mastery. Those are the key things. Generally, people are really interested in, right? Not the reward. Actually, when you give more reward, they have felt more, right? So if you increase the amount of bonus for certain thing, they felt miserably because the stake is high. Now you're trying hard, or you can cheat the system, right? And you're not gonna get the right output that you want. So there's a really good video that you can watch as well. So anything else? Any questions, anything?
I think in one of the parts, I also saw that happiness as one of the factors for the employees. One is that, and do you have any idea about, does this say anything about performance appraisals?
Well, that's a big topic. In US, this is a big topic as well, right? Because when you go to Agile, you can't really have an annual performance appraisal basis, right? And most of them, there was a 360 appraisal way before Agile as well, right? So people are more going 360 appraisal, right? But there are certain companies where like they allow team to appraise each other, right? And then there are smaller companies. There are smaller companies who has given the autonomy in salary as well, okay? Because everybody has a salary transparency, and you basically each other make a determination where the salary, whose salary needs to be what, based on what you are doing, right? So basically self-organizing, right? So they have gone to that level also. But key is on performance appraisal, this is still the topic of discussion still, right? Nobody has like a perfect solution. People might have tried different things, right? But still there's no perfect solution. But at least I think, again, since you brought a topic, I'm not again trying to market my product, but I have a team in, I think I told you guys last time also, there's a feedback system in this one. Basically, team member each other can give feedback to each other, right? So basically that can give you some way to improve it, but that's not a performance appraisal either. That's not a performance appraisal. But I think that can lead to some, it may have some say on the performance appraisal, right? Maybe the manager has some input, team member has some input, there is a stakeholder may have some input, right? Because we need to get input. It's mostly 360, but not on an annual basis though. Not on an annual basis. Either it needs to be a monthly basis, but it needs to be very quick and easy to give feedback, right? To appraise people, right? So probably that would be more Agile way again, right? Not waterfall, not you don't wait 1 year to give feedback basically. You need to keep feedback in every month, right? Appraisal is primarily, it was for the feedback, right? So again, if you see that video also, because appraisal kind of correlates to the bonus or the salary increase, right? But we thinking that salary increase or bonus will motivate people, right? But does that really? I don't think, because after you get, let's say salary increase, after 6 months you forget how much increase you have, right? Actually, if you have the online banking and then if you get, online, your money just transfer to the bank, you can even forget how much you are making, honestly, seriously, right? So money is not the main determinative factor to motivate people. So appraisal is not really for money. You should not tie it. So appraisal is for feedback. So it means that we need to go as an approach and iteratively we need to get feedback, but from the most of the people. Right? That's my take. But still, people are really struggling with that. Because for the larger organization, you need the proof. You need the like all this. Your bureaucratic process, right? You need those kind of things. So they haven't moved on. As I said, I deal with the large organization that still have not solved this problem. Still, it's waterfall way.
So have you seen a case where maybe the compensation package is kind of directly mapped into the increase in revenue or like profitability for that specific quarter?
Yeah,
so how has it worked? Like, is it beneficial or like it has its own disadvantages?
Primarily, actually, for bonus, there is definitely, you used to have a high-level correlation in companies that I worked with, right? So basically, based on the profit and based on the revenue both, right? Revenue and profit, if we have certain level, then bonus has a percentage of that, right? Bonus has a percentage of that, and then of course the department manager had autonomy. Now more and more, you can allow team to have autonomy, right? Team to have autonomy to distribute bonus. Right?
So just based on the pool that was decided by the
decided, okay, for your team, this is bonus. How you want to celebrate? Maybe you will just go to, I don't know, fly to Malaysia, or I don't know where you guys go generally. To Singapore, or enjoy all the money, or divide that money and take it, right? Or how you want to divide it, right? Based on what do you think your contribution? Just take a vote, do the poker planning again, right? Say, some says 8, some says 5, then have them discuss, right? Bring in the clarity, right? So it's up to the team how they can do it.
Actually, this complexities of feedback giving and appraisal, and again based on that,